If you're over the age of 60, I want you to listen to a story that could change the way you view your health, especially during those peaceful nights of sleep. You might not realize it, but a small habit seemingly harmless could silently increase your risk of a stroke while you sleep. It's hard to believe, right? It doesn't cause any pain, and there are no warning signs. You simply go to bed one night feeling fine, and then wake up the next morning to discover that you can't lift your arm, speak clearly, or even maintain your balance. So what is this small habit? It's the vitamins many older adults take every day thinking they're doing something good for their health, but in reality, they may be silently harming your brain and heart. Yes, I'm talking about those vitamin pills you've been taking for years, without ever considering the dangerous effects they might have. And I know that even if you don't smoke, eat healthily, and maintain a good exercise routine, these vitamins can still put you at risk in ways you never expected. I am a neurologist, and over the years I have worked with thousands of patients over the age of 50 here in the United States. What I've noticed is that many of the stroke cases I've encountered aren't caused by high blood pressure, diabetes, or smoking. Instead, they were caused by something most people would never suspect: those harmless vitamin pills that patients take every day. Today, I want to share 5 real stories I've witnessed about 5 common vitamins that older adults often take, but which could silently challenge your brain and heart. These stories might just be life-saving for you or someone you care about. So if you've ever taken vitamin D, EB6A, or niacin, stick around until the end of the video because it could save your life one day. 1. Vitamin E, the silent enemy of your blood vessels. Let me tell you about a patient I'll never forget: Evelyn Brooks, a vibrant 81-year-old retired librarian from Ohio. She was one of those people who seemed to always be on the move. Smart, funny, and always with a book in hand, Evelyn had lived a full life. She had a condition called heart valve disease, which, as you can imagine, wasn't easy. It meant she had to be on medication to manage the risk of blood clots. So her doctor prescribed warfarin, a well-known blood thinner. Warfarin is one of the most common medications used to prevent blood clots in patients with heart conditions, and Evelyn was one of many who relied on it to help manage her health. One day, Evelyn was reading a magazine, as she often did, and she came across an ad for vitamin E. The ad claimed that vitamin E could do wonders for your health, improve circulation, boost memory, and even help with your overall well-being. The specific claim that caught her attention was that it could improve memory and help with circulation. Being in her 80s, Evelyn was always looking for ways to stay sharp and feel her best. So naturally, she was intrigued. The ad recommended taking 800 IU of vitamin E per pill. It didn't sound like much, and the benefits sounded fantastic. Evelyn had always been someone who believed in the power of vitamins and supplements, so she decided to give it a try. She began taking the vitamin E every day, sticking to the recommended dosage, without really thinking twice about it. For 3 weeks, she took the vitamin E consistently, and she felt good. There were no immediate signs of anything wrong. In fact, Evelyn continued her daily routine, enjoyed her walks, and read her books just as she always had. But then one morning, everything changed. Evelyn woke up with a severe headache. It wasn't the kind of headache that passes with a little rest or a cup of coffee. No, this was different. Her head was pounding, and she couldn't shake it. As she tried to get out of bed, she noticed something else was wrong. Her speech was slurred. When she tried to say something, the words wouldn't come out clearly. She felt disoriented, almost as if her brain wasn't working the way it was supposed to. To make matters worse, Evelyn started feeling nauseous. She was vomiting and couldn't figure out why. It wasn't like her at all to feel this way. She called her daughter, who rushed over to check on her. Her daughter was alarmed by how disoriented Evelyn seemed, so she immediately took her to the hospital. The doctors ran a series of tests, including an MRI, and the results were shocking. Evelyn had suffered a brain hemorrhage, a stroke essentially caused by bleeding in the brain. It was hard to believe. There was no sign of high blood pressure, no signs of a fall or injury that would explain this sudden event. It wasn't like Evelyn had been living an unhealthy lifestyle either. She ate well, she exercised regularly, and she took care of herself. But the cause of the bleeding was clear. It was the result of her blood becoming too thin. Now you might be wondering, how could something as simple as vitamin E cause such a serious problem? Well, here's the issue. High doses of vitamin E act like a natural blood thinner. If you're already taking blood-thinning medications like warfarin or aspirin, the combination can create a perfect storm. The blood becomes too thin, and that's exactly what happened to Evelyn. The warfarin she was already taking had thinned her blood to prevent clots, but when she added the vitamin E into the mix, it was like pushing her blood-thinning treatment over the edge. Her blood was so thin that it led to a brain hemorrhage. That's why she woke up with those symptoms. Her blood vessels in the brain couldn't handle it, and they started to bleed. It's an incredibly dangerous situation that can happen silently without warning. Evelyn was fortunate enough to survive the hemorrhage, but it wasn't without consequences. The damage to her brain was significant. While she made it through physically, her short-term memory was never the same. She struggled to remember things, and her ability to process information quickly was compromised. It was heartbreaking for her family as they watched this once sharp, independent woman struggle with tasks she used to do without even thinking. I tell you this story not to scare you, but to make an important point. Vitamins, while often seen as harmless and even beneficial, should be treated with the same level of care and respect as medications. So many people, including Evelyn, believe that vitamins are natural and therefore safe. But the truth is they can have serious side effects, especially when combined with other medications. We often don't think about the interactions between the supplements we take and the prescriptions our doctors give us. Evelyn trusted that the vitamin E would help her with circulation and memory, but it ended up doing the opposite, contributing to a life-threatening situation. What many people don't realize is that vitamin E, when taken in high doses, can act like a blood thinner. And if you're already on blood thinners like warfarin, aspirin, or Plavix, you're at risk of a dangerous interaction. It's a silent risk, one that doesn't show up until something catastrophic happens. That's why it's so important to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplements, especially if you're already taking other medications. Vitamins aren't just harmless little pills. They can have powerful effects on your body, some of which may be dangerous if not managed properly. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's that you need to be cautious with vitamins just as you would with any other medicine. Too often we think of vitamins as being natural and safe, but they can have serious consequences, particularly for older adults who are already managing other health conditions. Evelyn's story is a reminder that even the most well-meaning supplements like vitamin E can be harmful if not taken with caution and proper medical guidance. So before you add any new vitamin or supplement to your routine, always check with your healthcare provider. They can help you avoid dangerous interactions and ensure that what you're taking is actually helping, not harming you. Evelyn's case is just one example, but it highlights an important lesson that we all need to learn. Supplements can be powerful, but they're not without risks. And those risks are often invisible until it's too late. So if you're taking vitamin E or any other supplement, make sure you're doing it safely. It's always better to be informed and cautious than to face a serious health crisis because of something you thought was harmless. Your health and well-being are worth the effort. 2. Vitamin D stroke in your sleep. Imagine this: you go to bed feeling perfectly healthy, ready to rest after a long day. You wake up the next morning, and suddenly you can't lift your right arm. Your face feels strange, and you realize your mouth is crooked. This was exactly what happened to Mr. Walter, a 74-year-old retired Navy sailor who lived a full and active life. He had always been proud of his health, but one thing he didn't realize was how a seemingly innocent supplement could dramatically change his life. Mr. Walter had been taking 10,000 IU of vitamin D every morning for years, believing that it would protect his bones and boost his immune system. Like many older adults, he'd heard that vitamin D is crucial for maintaining bone health and fighting off illness. He didn't think much about it when he started the supplement. In fact, he felt better. Initially, his energy levels improved, and he was convinced the vitamin D was doing its job. So he continued taking his daily dose without any concerns. But over time, something started to go wrong. His body began accumulating too much calcium in his blood, a condition called hypercalcemia. At first, the signs were subtle. Mr. Walter didn't notice any drastic symptoms or changes in his routine, but the calcium in his blood had begun to build up, and it was starting to cause problems. Over time, the excess calcium was causing his arteries to become stiffer and narrower, which in turn made it more difficult for blood to flow smoothly. He didn't know it yet, but his body was silently setting itself up for a stroke. Then one fateful night while he was sleeping, the danger struck. The buildup of calcium and the narrowing of his arteries created the perfect conditions for a blood clot. All it took was a small clot, and it was enough to cause a stroke while he slept. The worst part, there were no warning signs. No headache, no dizziness, nothing to signal that something was terribly wrong. Mr. Walter woke up in the morning to find his right arm completely paralyzed and his face drooping to one side. He could barely speak, and his mind was clouded with confusion. It was only later, after a trip to the hospital and some tests, that doctors explained what had happened. His stroke was caused by the buildup of calcium in his bloodstream, a result of taking excessive amounts of vitamin D over the years. The high doses of vitamin D had led to increased calcium levels in his body, causing his arteries to stiffen. This made it easier for a clot to form and travel to his brain, resulting in the stroke. Now, many people believe that taking high doses of vitamin D is a good thing. After all, we've all heard about the benefits of vitamin D for our bones and immune system. But the truth is, while vitamin D is essential for our health, especially as we age, too much of it can actually do more harm than good. For older adults, the recommendation isn't to take vitamin D unless there's a deficiency. And even then, it's best to take it in the morning, not at night. That's because vitamin D has a role in calcium regulation, and if you take too much, it can cause an imbalance in calcium levels. And when calcium builds up in your blood, it can lead to some serious consequences, like stiff arteries and an increased risk of stroke. Mr. Walter's story is a perfect example of how more is not always better when it comes to supplements. We often think that taking a higher dose will provide more benefits, but in reality, overdoing it can be dangerous. In his case, the excess vitamin D led to a life-threatening stroke that left him with lasting physical limitations. It's a reminder that when it comes to vitamins and supplements, moderation is key. And it's essential to check with your doctor before starting any new supplement regimen, especially if you're already taking other medications or have underlying health conditions. The lesson here is simple. Vitamin D is important for our health, but just like anything else, it should be taken in the right amounts. For older adults, it's crucial to get a proper diagnosis to determine if you have a deficiency before you start taking high doses. And if you are taking vitamin D, it's important to take it at the right time, preferably in the morning, as this helps your body absorb it better. More isn't always better, and sometimes excessive amounts can lead to serious health risks, as we saw in Mr. Walter's case. So the next time you think about reaching for that vitamin D bottle, remember Mr. Walter's story. Be cautious with your supplements, talk to your healthcare provider about the right dosage. And don't just follow the popular belief that taking more will automatically give you better results. Your health is valuable, and it's worth the effort to make informed decisions about what goes into your body. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to stick to the basics, take what you truly need, and leave the excess behind. 3. Vitamin B6 silently destroying your nerves. Let me tell you about Mr. Harold Jenkins, a 76-year-old gentleman who came into my clinic one morning complaining about tingling in his feet, shaky hands, and frequent loss of balance. He thought it was just a normal part of aging, something we all go through as we get older. Maybe his joints were getting weaker, or perhaps it was just the wear and tear on his body over the years. But as I listened to him and conducted a thorough examination, I realized something wasn't quite right. Harold's symptoms weren't just a natural part of aging. There was something deeper going on. When I asked him about his daily routine, he mentioned taking a supplement every day to help with his memory and overall brain function. Curious, I asked him what exactly he was taking. He said it was a brain health supplement with vitamin B6, and he took 200 milligrams each day. For a moment, I was stunned. You see, that's about 10 times the safe recommended dose for vitamin B6, which is typically between 2 to 10 milligrams per day. But Harold had been taking this high dose every day for months, thinking it would improve his mental clarity and boost his cognitive function. The thing is, vitamin B6 is essential for our health. It plays a crucial role in nerve function, brain development, and the production of red blood cells. But like most things in life, more doesn't always mean better. When you take too much vitamin B6, especially over time, it can cause serious damage to the very nerves you're trying to protect. In Harold's case, he was suffering from peripheral neuropathy, a condition where the nerves in his hands and feet were being slowly damaged, which is a direct result of the excessive vitamin B6 he was consuming. Neuropathy is a term we use to describe nerve damage, and it's often linked to symptoms like tingling numbness and muscle weakness. In the extremities, exactly what Harold was experiencing. The symptoms of neuropathy can develop very gradually, often over weeks or months, and many people like Harold mistake them for something else, like arthritis, or even the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Harold thought his symptoms were just part of getting older, but the truth was, they were caused by something completely preventable, taking too much vitamin B6. When I explained this to him, he was shocked. He had no idea that something as seemingly harmless as a vitamin could cause so much damage. You see, vitamin B6 is a water-soluble vitamin, which means your body doesn't store it the way it does with fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamin D. However, when you take too much, your body can't process it efficiently, and it can start to accumulate, leading to nerve damage. The effects of vitamin B6 toxicity are often subtle at first, tingling, numbness, weakness, but if not addressed, they can become much more severe, causing permanent nerve damage and even affecting your ability to walk or perform basic tasks. In Harold's case, his nerve damage had reached a point where it was significantly impacting his quality of life. He was no longer able to walk without assistance, and he struggled to hold a cup of coffee because his hands would shake uncontrollably. All of this could have been avoided if he had simply taken the recommended dose of vitamin B6, which is typically around 2 to 3 to 10 milligrams per day, something most people can get easily through their diet. Foods like poultry, fish, potatoes, and non-citrus fruits are all good sources of vitamin B6, so unless you have a deficiency, there's no need for high-dose supplements. The most concerning part of Harold's story is how slowly the symptoms crept up on him. He didn't realize that what he thought was just the normal process of aging was actually something that could be fixed simply by cutting back on his vitamin B6 intake. Many people, especially as they age, tend to take supplements for all sorts of reasons, thinking they're helping their health. But what they don't always realize is that too much of a good thing can turn into something harmful. And often the damage is done before you even notice it. So what's the takeaway from Harold's story? First and foremost, it's important to remember that vitamins are not always as harmless as they seem. Just because a supplement is available over the counter doesn't mean it's always safe, especially if you're taking it in large quantities. Vitamin B6 is essential for nerve function, but in excessive amounts it can be incredibly damaging. If you're considering taking vitamin B6 supplements, make sure you're doing so under the guidance of a healthcare provider. And remember, you don't need high doses to get the benefits. It's all about moderation. If you're taking a brain health supplement or any vitamin supplement, be sure to check the dosage. The general recommended dose for vitamin B6 is between 2 to 10 milligrams per day, and this is typically enough to meet your body's needs. You can usually get all the vitamin B6 you need from a healthy diet. If you're overdoing it, your body might be trying to tell you something just like it did with Harold. In the end, Harold's story serves as a reminder to be cautious about the supplements you take and to always seek medical advice when in doubt. Supplements, when taken in moderation, can be helpful, but they are not a substitute for a balanced diet and proper medical care. And just because something is natural doesn't mean it's always safe. So take a moment to reconsider those high doses of vitamins, especially if you're taking them regularly. Your nerves and your overall health will thank you for it. 4. Vitamin A, the silent pressure in the brain. Let me tell you about Dorothy Simmons, a 79-year-old retired piano teacher who lived a life filled with music and teaching, bringing joy to countless students over the years. Dorothy was someone who prided herself on maintaining her health even in her later years. She took pride in staying active and keeping her mind sharp, but there was one thing she was particularly concerned about: her eyes. Dorothy had always been careful about her eye health, and when she heard that vitamin A could help maintain good vision and keep her skin looking youthful, she decided to add it to her daily routine. For 5 years, she took 10,000 IU of vitamin A every day, believing it was doing wonders for her health. For the first few years, Dorothy felt great. Her skin looked better, her vision seemed clear, and she was able to continue her piano lessons and activities with ease. However, after a while, Dorothy began experiencing troubling symptoms. She started having severe headaches that seemed to come out of nowhere. At first, she thought it was just a common headache, maybe from stress or lack of sleep. But these headaches grew worse, and soon she began to notice that her vision was getting blurry. Things started to feel off balance. She would feel dizzy when standing up, and her vision would fluctuate between clear and blurry. Eventually, her family became worried, fearing that she might be having a stroke. They rushed her to the hospital, where doctors ran a series of tests to figure out what was happening. The results were not what anyone expected. There were no signs of blood clots or hemorrhages in her brain. But there was something else going on, something that many people don't know can happen when vitamin A is taken in excess. Dorothy's condition turned out to be a case of pseudotumor cerebri, a condition that occurs when there is increased pressure around the brain due to a buildup of fluid in the skull. This pressure can mimic the symptoms of a brain tumor, including headaches, blurred vision, and dizziness. The cause: too much vitamin A. You see, vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means it's stored in your body's fat and liver. Unlike water-soluble vitamins, which are excreted from the body when you take more than you need, fat-soluble vitamins can build up over time. As we get older, our bodies, particularly the liver and kidneys, work less efficiently. This means that excess vitamin A can accumulate, leading to toxicity. In Dorothy's case, the excess vitamin A had accumulated in her liver and brain, causing the dangerous buildup of pressure in her head. What many people don't realize is that while vitamin A is essential for good vision, healthy skin, and immune function, taking too much can have serious consequences. The recommended daily intake of vitamin A for adults is much lower than what Dorothy had been taking. For most people, a dose of 10,000 IU per day is far beyond what the body needs. And when you take it over a long period of time, the risks of toxicity increase. Unfortunately, Dorothy was not aware of the potential dangers of long-term high-dose vitamin A supplementation, and it led her to this serious health scare. After the doctors diagnosed her with pseudotumor cerebri, they immediately recommended stopping the vitamin A supplement. They explained to Dorothy that the pressure in her brain could be alleviated by discontinuing the vitamin A and allowing her body to process and flush out the excess. Luckily, after stopping the supplement, Dorothy began to improve. Her headaches subsided and her dizziness became less frequent. However, despite her recovery, Dorothy's vision never fully returned to the way it was before. The damage done to her eyes by the prolonged pressure on her brain meant that her vision would never be the same. This situation serves as a stark reminder that even vitamins, things we often consider harmless, can have serious consequences if taken improperly. Vitamin A is important, but it's essential to use it in moderation. Too much of it can lead to toxicity, and in older adults, where the liver and kidneys aren't as efficient at processing nutrients, the risk of buildup is even greater. This is why it's critical to consult with a healthcare professional before starting any high-dose vitamin regimen, especially for fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A. So what can we learn from Dorothy's experience? First, it's important to remember that more isn't always better when it comes to vitamins. While vitamin A is essential for eye health and overall well-being, taking excessive amounts can be harmful. It's crucial to follow the recommended dosages, and if you are considering supplementing with vitamin A, make sure you're doing so under medical supervision, particularly if you're over the age of 50. You should be aware of the signs of vitamin A: toxicity, headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, and nausea. And if you experience any of these symptoms, it's vital to seek medical attention immediately. Dorothy's case highlights the importance of not taking supplements blindly without considering the potential risks. What seemed like a simple solution to preserve her eye health and skin eventually turned into a dangerous health crisis. If you're taking high-dose vitamin A or any other supplement, it's important to stop and reassess your routine. Sometimes our bodies can get everything they need from a balanced diet, and in the case of vitamin A, you don't need to take high doses to reap the benefits. The best way to keep your eyes healthy and your skin glowing is through a balanced diet with foods that provide vitamin A naturally, such as carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach, and eggs. In the end, Dorothy was lucky to have survived this scare. With proper treatment and a change in her supplement habits, she was able to recover, though her vision would never be the same. But her story is a warning to all of us. Always be cautious with the vitamins and supplements we take, and make sure we understand the potential risks before we start taking them. What we put into our bodies matters, and we need to make informed decisions to protect our long-term health. So before you reach for that vitamin A bottle, remember Dorothy's story. Make sure you're taking the right dose and always consult your doctor first. Your health is too important to leave to chance. 5. Vitamin B3, a double-edged sword for your heart. Let me introduce you to Mr. Frank Miller, an 82-year-old retired engineer who, like many people in his age group, was concerned about his health and did everything he could to stay in good shape. Frank had heard about the benefits of niacin, also known as vitamin B3, for heart health, and decided to start taking a supplement to support his cardiovascular system. He began taking 1,000 mg of niacin twice a day, thinking it was a harmless way to protect his heart and improve his circulation. At first, Frank didn't think much of it. He took his supplements diligently, hoping for the best, but soon after, something strange started happening. He noticed that his face would flush bright red sometimes, with a warmth that felt almost like a sunburn. At first, he thought it was just a side effect of the supplement, but as time went on, it got worse. His dizziness intensified, and one day Frank experienced a frightening episode. He suddenly couldn't feel his left arm properly, and his speech was slurred. His family rushed him to the hospital, and after a series of tests, the doctors determined he had suffered what's called a transient ischemic attack, or TIA, a mini stroke. The cause of Frank's TIA: high doses of niacin. Niacin, when taken in high amounts, can cause the blood vessels to dilate, then constrict, creating dangerous fluctuations in blood pressure. For Frank, this constant fluctuation in blood pressure put an immense strain on his cardiovascular system, and it triggered a TIA. The TIA, while temporary, is a serious warning sign, as it often precedes a full-blown stroke. Frank was lucky his symptoms passed relatively quickly, but he now had a clear warning that the high doses of niacin he was taking could have serious consequences. Niacin is essential for overall health, particularly in helping to regulate cholesterol levels and improve circulation. However, when taken in excess, it can act as a double-edged sword, especially for older adults. High doses of niacin cause blood vessels to expand, and then as the body attempts to regulate itself, those vessels constrict again. This back-and-forth action can lead to dangerous spikes and drops in blood pressure, which is a major risk factor for stroke, particularly in older adults whose cardiovascular systems are already more fragile. What Frank didn't know, and what many people don't realize, is that niacin should only be taken in small doses, ideally no more than 50 milligrams per day, unless you're under the supervision of a doctor. At higher doses, niacin can have harmful side effects, and Frank's case is a perfect example of how taking too much of something that seems beneficial can actually be a gamble with your health. Niacin may seem like a harmless supplement, but when taken inappropriately or in high amounts, it can wreak havoc on your heart and brain. So what can we learn from Frank's story? First and foremost, it's crucial to remember that supplements, even those with seemingly simple benefits, can be dangerous when taken incorrectly. Niacin is a powerful nutrient that can help lower cholesterol and improve circulation, but when used improperly, especially in high doses, it can cause serious cardiovascular issues, including strokes. The key takeaway here is moderation. If you're considering taking niacin or any other supplement, it's essential to talk to your doctor first. High doses should never be self-prescribed, especially for older adults whose bodies may not handle the fluctuations in blood pressure that niacin can cause. In Frank's case, he learned the hard way that taking more of something isn't always better. While niacin can have benefits for heart health, it's important to stick to the recommended doses and to always consult a healthcare professional before making any changes to your supplement regimen. After Frank's TIA, his doctor advised him to stop taking the high doses of niacin and to instead focus on other heart-healthy habits like a balanced diet, regular exercise, and prescribed medications. The lesson here is simple. Niacin can be a useful tool for heart health, but only when used correctly. And that means no more than 50 milligrams per day, unless a healthcare provider says otherwise. Anything higher than that is a risky gamble with your health, especially as you get older. So if you're thinking about adding niacin to your routine, please consult with your doctor first. Your heart and your brain will thank you for it. Hey there, friends. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with something important that these 5 stories teach us. Getting older isn't about taking more vitamins or supplements. It's about knowing what's right for your body and understanding that the right choices are what matter most. Taking the wrong doses of vitamins can quietly set you up for serious health problems, things like strokes, brain hemorrhages, nerve damage, and even memory loss. As we age, our bodies don't process things the same way they did when we were younger. That means it's easier than ever to end up with a dangerous overdose without even realizing it. So here's what I'd like you to do today. 1. Head over to your medicine cabinet, open up those vitamin bottles, and really take a close look at the labels. Pay special attention to the ones for vitamin D, EB6A, and niacin. You might be surprised at what you find. 2. Share this video with at least one person you care about. It could be a friend, a family member, anyone who could benefit from hearing this message. You never know, it could help them avoid a life-threatening stroke while they sleep. If this video helped you see something you hadn't noticed before, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the Senior Care Wellness channel. By subscribing, you'll be joining me on this journey to better understand how to protect our brains, hearts, and overall well-being as we age. We're all in this together. Let's always keep in mind that health doesn't come from the number of pills we pop every day. It's about how well we take care of our bodies, how much we understand about what we're putting into them, and the love we show ourselves. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember, aging with wisdom is the real key to living well.